Alrighty folks, I'm going to try and do a quick little video while I'm in the process of making a couple molds here on one of my hacks for helping to get rid of bubbles in your epoxy. I am using, get this out of the way for just a moment here, KSRESIN Liquid Art Ultra UV currently for these particular molds. You can see that's my part A there. And I had it in warm water already, so it was getting nice and warm. My part B. And I've got a secret ingredient, so I'll show you in just a second. So I'm going to get that out and measure it out. The order off. I'm going to do probably about 20 mils for this particular mold. So we'll have 10 of each part, 20 total. Alright, so there's that one. And I just measure in the same cup. I don't like having to waste cups if I don't have to. That was my part A, this is my part B. There's my part B. Alright. And I'm going to stir. A lot of people prefer to use a metal stirring stick or a silicone stir stick. And yes, those are absolutely preferred typically. I like the popsicle sticks for convenience because I don't have to clean them. I do have metal stirring sticks and silicone stirring sticks both, but I like not having to clean the popsicle sticks. I can just get rid of them. I know it's a lot of waste. I hate that. I really do, but it's what I do. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to make sure I get my bottom stirred portion incorporated really well. Scrape my sides real good. And every so often I kind of scrape off my stick to make sure I'm not getting all stuck on there. I'll get it stirred up a little. There are some days I tend to be a really mad, crazy stirrer, so my trick that I'm going to show you comes in handy a lot. I don't do it all the time, but every once in a while. So, and here we go. I was trying to get it cleared up. But what you will notice is that we have bubbles. There are definitely bubbles in that epoxy. So here's my secret hack, my secret trick, secret ingredient, however you want to put it. Take just a little bit, not a lot, of 91% isopropyl. Sometimes I've got 99, just depends on what I have handy at the moment. And normally this is in my spray bottle, which actually is what I got right here. It's normally in my spray bottle, so my little Mr. bottle. So it's just easier to add it to my epoxy this way. Just do a little mist, maybe a tiny bit extra. And then I will stir. And those bubbles, you should see some start immediately popping off of the top right away. But as I mix in the rest of those bubbles, or the rest of that alcohol, the rest of those bubbles will begin to disappear. Now, the thing to remember when doing this trick, the alcohol will thin your epoxy. It will lower the viscosity of it, which means that if you're adding glitter or something, you will need to wait just a little bit longer typically for it to begin to thicken enough that you can have your glitter suspended, depending upon your application. It also will help you get a little bit longer working time out of it as well, because it lowers your viscosity. So it becomes very thin, very runny. But I don't have to worry about bubbles, and that's worth it. So just a tiny bit more. Now I still recommend, obviously, other tricks as well. You will see that my bubbles are like beginning to kind of instantly disappear as that goes, but I still recommend, still let it set for a couple minutes, just out of habit, to kind of thicken back up a little bit and dissipate any additional bubbles. This is kind of the same idea as when you pour into your molds. If you spray the top of your molds with alcohol, that it will pop the surface bubbles. This just kind of gets the alcohol into the epoxy itself instead. A lot of people are very scared about the idea of adding alcohol to their epoxy. If you have ever made your own alcohol inks, you would know that they are nothing more than isopropyl alcohol and pigment, whether it be pigment from a Sharpie, which is, I've made my own doing that, or pigment from like pigment powder or pigment dye or something like that. That's essentially all it is. So it's really not, as long as you're not going overboard with it, it's not going to hurt it. You don't add a crazy amount of alcohol. You add enough to just get rid of the bubbles. You should notice that although there are still a few micro bubbles, those will start to come to the surface on me as I tap, and I can easily make those go away. A little bit there. Kind of slow. Add as needed. Now, there's definitely some question for some folks in regards to if you add too much alcohol, it changing the chemical composition to the point where it won't cure. I have never had that personally be a problem, but again, I don't go hog wild with my alcohol either, so I try and keep it to what I need to just to get rid of the bubbles. And I really only do this typically, this is more for demonstration purposes, but I really typically only do this if I am trying to utilize the last bit of epoxy after I've done a cup, because cups I spray with just, I don't add it to the epoxy directly. Torch, just a hair. But should see them start to pop and dissipate in there. Last bit. Yeah, that should do it. Now, you will probably still have a few bubbles floating around in here at the moment. As as your epoxy sets, as it's in your mold or on your cup or whatever you're applying it to, or whatever you application you're doing with it, they will dissipate. And I will have to add a little follow-up to that in just a moment. Actually, I've got a couple examples that I did previously with this method I can show you. So I'm going to add glitter to this one, so I can't really show you this one so easily. Oop, don't spill it. That'd be a mess. You see it clears up. The bubbles will dissipate. They are nothing but micro bubbles at this point, and they will dissipate as it cures. That alcohol will continue to work and do its job and pop those bubbles. So give me just a second and I will grab an example for you. Little jewelry box the kids made for the kids one day. It's a little smeared just because fingers been touching it. But this is the alcohol trick with a little bit of a ultrafine glitter and some alcohol ink for color, just to tint it. But there is, I don't know if you can see it because the glitter, there is no bubbles in this whatsoever. It is perfectly clear. And this was done with the same epoxy. Show you the bottom of it. Just got it's like a glitter. It's not even a piece of, it's not even bubbles, it's glitter. But again, this is the same. No bubbles whatsoever. Or if they are so microscopic that you can't tell. Like I'm having, I think that's all glitter. I can't even tell. I think it's all glitter. Yeah, no, that's all glitter. It's ultrafine because I see the sparkle on it as I'm turning it. What I thought I saw a bubble, but it's not. And that's a little piece of, that's a bigger chunk of glitter that got mixed in by accident. But the only bubble spots, we've got like a couple little on the edge where there was like a little air bubble. So there's a little divot there, but they're so tiny. It's almost invisible to the eye. Like I really had to look to see those. So that's my example. That's my hack. As you can see, my epoxy is, yeah, I'll probably lightly torch it just to help remove any other little stragglers, but there are bubbles in it now. But by the time it cures, just got earrings in here, they're gone. So that's my hack. Unfortunately, it's not something I can really show you, from start to finish per se, because you have to wait for the epoxy to cure with the same batch without like having to do multiple little videos on this. But try it on a mold. If you're not sure, if you don't believe me, try it. Just a little bit. Do one little mold so you're not wasting a lot of epoxy in case I'm wrong. But I'm not. It works. I promise. Have a great night.